Hi, I'm Sara Morel and this is Becky, and we're from Salvo, which is the destination for reclamation and reuse and a marketplace for architectural salvage and reclaimed building materials.
This week we're streaming to you from Salvo Fest of Imperfect Beauty and CE Week London for the annual Circular Economy Showcase.
In celebration of Salvo's 30th Pearl anniversary, Salvo Fest is a 4-day digital festival dedicated to reuse, from architecture to fashion, to help people not only build, but also dress their homes and themselves for the world they want.
Established in 1991 to promote reuse, Salvo was created with the aim of reducing the amount of salvageable materials that end up in landfill. Initially a directory of suppliers for reclaimed materials, Salvo grew with a monthly magazine and launched a marketplace to connect people online, which helped the movement grow globally. Now it has a 4,000-strong worldwide directory of salvage-friendly businesses. Our ethos is reuse for the world you want, and Salvo created a community around this mission, matching something reclaimed or recrafted with someone that wants to reuse it.
Salvo is also known for big architectural salvage fairs, which have featured large iconic pieces of salvage history, including London's Westminster Bridge and the Baltic Exchange pictured here. And 15 years ago today, Salvo Fair artist-in-residence Mark McGowan began an epic journey travelling 40 miles head over heels from the Gherkin, where the Baltic Exchange once stood, to the fair's location, where parts of the rescued building were on display in Hertfordshire. It took him just over 2 weeks, and he had a reclaimed door and 4 reclaimed bricks to campaign for reuse before recycling. We're not giving the artist credit for the policy changes and the EU Waste Hierarchy Directive, but it was just a few years before it came into place and prioritised reuse over recycling. At the time, in 2006, Salvo supported the reclamation of more than 1,000 tonnes of carved stone and exotic marble, which was the largest chunk of architectural salvage to be advertised for sale via the internet. The salvage scene is vast and diverse, and despite its success, particularly this last year as people were looking to build better, it still remains underutilised by mainstream construction.
So, driven by the shocking statistic that only 1% of building materials are reused, Salvo is currently a partner in the FCRBE EU project, which stands for Facilitating the Circulation of Reclaimed Building Elements, which is a bit of a mouthful. So we branded it as futuREuse. The project aims to increase the reuse of reclaimed building materials by 50% by 2032. Today, we will be tracing the emergence of the reclamation trade and the trend for reclaimed materials with case studies of London fashion environments to show the opportunities that these materials offer, not only in reducing waste, but also increasing commercial success. Reclamation and reuse, which were human nature before 1950, have become less a necessity and more a choice, which fashion has increasingly guided towards newly manufactured materials. In the 1970s, early pioneers of salvage set about making a market for reclaimed materials, and reuse developed as a consumer choice. The word secondhand was refashioned in favour of reclaimed, and desirability grew from designers to DIYers.
Beyond the trend for visibly reclaimed interiors, the underlying movement of environmental consciousness has the power to instill reuse as an ethos that does not go out of fashion. Materials are reclaimed throughout the world, but more could still be done. Similarly to construction products, a tiny proportion of textiles are reclaimed, so there is a strong opportunity for change in both fashion and its built environments. I think the current diversification of what the world sees as beautiful can only be good in encouraging more reuse. That's also why we chose the theme for our festival this week of imperfect beauty, to really celebrate that. So today, through visual surveys and interviews, we hope to inspire circular practices and a future where use starts with reuse. Increasing scrutiny of the fashion industry's carbon footprint has encouraged brands beyond those that market themselves as sustainable to declare carbon neutrality. It is now an essential part of corporate social responsibility, which in fashion terms can make it hard to separate the green from the washing. Although the carbon footprint of the construction and operation of a retail store has the largest impact, passive interior design also plays its part. when a more holistic approach could reduce the frequency of refurbishments. Retail has some of the fastest turnover of internal fit-outs, typically 2 to 10 years. Brands can declare carbon neutrality by finding carbon savings, sometimes somewhere on the other side of the world, in order to balance out the carbon emissions they have caused. By designing fashion environments with reclaimed materials, brands could save a lot of embodied energy and make strides towards carbon neutrality from their own store doorsteps.
Our visual surveys explore fashion destinations in London that incorporated reuse into their design philosophy. There is arguably a hierarchy within the examples of reuse, from antique reclaimed materials that have high historical and environmental value to innovative materials made from recycled waste and surplus, which is not technically reused, but rather making good use of excess supply. However, all the examples serve to show that this is a design ethos, not a single look, and no matter the style, there's opportunity to reuse and create retail environments with longevity.
Gabriela Hearst declared the first carbon neutral fashion show with her Spring 2020 collection, and the London building chosen for the brand's international flagship speaks of her ethos. Designed in the late 19th century by Robert William Edis, the Queen Anne Revival building features warm yellow brickwork and red fireclay mouldings. Edis believed that interiors should promote physical health and well-being. The new interior exhibits natural materials, avoiding the use of harmful chemicals. Collaboration between Gabriela Hearst and the architect Lord Norman Foster, the store features reclaimed materials which showcase her commitment to environmentally responsible design.
Upon entering, customers are greeted with a Heriblow parquet floor salvaged from Copthorne Barracks in Shropshire. Adopting materials reclaimed within the country, the brand opened its new doors as a good way to introduce and integrate with respect to the local environment. One of the newly developed futuREuse tools that assists reuse and local sourcing is a directory featuring 500 businesses across the UK and Ireland. A focused edit of the Salvo directory, the aim is to make it even easier for people to find the nearest reclamation yards and go-to friendly salvage businesses, and you can also search by material. Global fashion brands tend to focus on consistency, and a homogenised interior doesn't aid the use of salvage, with global sourcing being cited as a common barrier to using reclaimed materials. However, authenticity and uniqueness in commercial spaces will be even more important to entice people back as real-world retail reels from the effects of the pandemic. The Gabriela Hearst store design incorporates vegetable tanned leather and tones that hark back to the New York store, but with bespoke furniture crafted from London plane tree felled by a storm in Lincoln. The space is also decorated with locally sourced antiques such as the porcelain soldiers, which connects to the military flooring. Like the brand's tailoring, the store is luxurious, timeless and comfortable. Russell Hales, senior partner of Foster & Partners, told us that the interior spaces are designed to flow seamlessly, creating a relaxed experience for customers. It's clear that this is not about stockholding, but a new place for customers to discover and experience the brand.
Stella McCartney has always been committed to cruelty-free design, and over the years the fashion house has really focused on improving its environmental impact too. In the UK, all Stella McCartney offices, studios and stores are powered by wind energy. Designed by Stella and her team, the old Bond Street store interior incorporates recognisably reclaimed materials such as the display plinths made of brickole salvaged from waters in Venice. These sit alongside less obvious examples of reuse, like the building's lift, which is lined with faux fur reclaimed from a previous collection. Just like the brand's collections focus on innovation in discovering new ecological processes, the store showcases experimental materials like the papier-mâché wall panels, which are made from office waste paper.
An indoor rockery featuring boulders sourced from the McCartney farm in Scotland is the first feature customers see as they walk through the original Edwardian entryway. The design promotes well-being with replanted moss and thyme from the Wayward plant recycling scheme. and the store's clean air, which is purified to remove 95% of the air pollutants. The multi-sensory experience continues with sound, which is personal. Fitting rooms feature recordings from the designer's meditation teacher and a reclaimed wood reggae-style speaker installation, which plays records from Stella's own collection. Stella explained the design, saying, "What I wanted to do was to bring people off the streets from the hustle and bustle of the city and try and wrap my arms around them, hug them. I really want to have an experience of everything that we are at Stella McCartney, of bringing people in and having a relationship with the consumer, with a human. To have a moment, pause, and reflection is the point of the experience."
The fashion retail environment must be functional, yet also tell a story. The choice of truly reclaimed materials with provenance already have a story to communicate brand narratives, from heritage to sustainability. Rebecca Matheny of Ohio University coupled sensory perception of materials in retail with research aiming to encourage sustainable design. Rebecca writes, "Reclaimed wood is not artificial, it's genuine, honest, and real, and that connects to customers on a human level. Whether conscious or subconscious, the interior material product humanizes the brand and creates a connection between customer, brand, and the natural environment." Convenience of online shopping has changed physical retail into more of a leisure activity rather than a necessity to buy. Fashion retail has to up its game to give customers a reason to snap and share the shopping experience, and crucially to create sensory spaces where people really want to be. Early salvager and London-based designer Ivan Speake describes the humanity of reclaimed materials in the interiors that he creates. He says one of the most important things for him in any interior is people's wish to stroke it. And he thinks that's a really tactile quality about reclaimed materials. And that's very seductive for a lot of people. Ivan could guarantee that his designs for commercial interiors would increase turnover.
Creating a strong visual identity for the brand through the materials not only supports sales, it can also reinforce the brand's ethos. For example, the use of the centuries-old salvage timber in the Stella McCartney store communicates the brand's environmental commitment. Arguably, the more connected we feel in a retail space, the more we are in tune with ourselves and free to make conscious decisions and even remember why we are there and if we want to or need to buy. Real-world retail is not simply about products, it's about connecting with the brand. It might be interesting to note that even though Stella McCartney's store integrated reclaimed timber from Italy, and even without knowing the mode of transport used to get it to London, we can say that it would have still kept its carbon benefit versus new timber. This illustrates why it's so important to measure the carbon benefit of reuse and to encourage and mandate reuse in the built environment.
Now we move to King's Cross, where the retail neighbourhood takes its name from its history as freight rail yards of the Industrial Revolution, where London would receive coal from the north of England. Since construction in 1850, it has adapted for different purposes, from coal to club goods, when it became a raid destination before it fell into disuse in the 90s. Even then, the site's authentic character attracted fashion house Alexander McQueen to stage a show there, substituting a traditional runway for the old cobbled yard. Part restoration, part transformation, Heatherwick Studios' design for the new retail and restaurant quarter opened in 2018. Appointed by property developer Argent in 2014, Heatherwick Studios project leader Tamsin Green told us that across the broader development, there was a site-wide approach to the strategy for reclamation and storage. Much of what was salvaged has been reused, often on the site from which it was reclaimed.
Same-site reuse decreases the chance of materials being left to waste and respects the part those materials played in situ. The reuse of carbon-containing materials is more eco-friendly than the energy cost of making new ones, which sets Coal Drops Yard apart from the usual shopping complex. Again, we see human connectedness with a design that links the viaducts in what's been likened to a kiss. Tamsin explained that the high street has been in crisis for a long time and that their client, Argent, understood that to survive, any new build retail space needs to offer something more interesting and special to be more sustainable for the future.
One of the reasons that this project has been so successful is the early stage agreement across the different stakeholders involved. This is essential to seize reuse opportunities. We will be publishing futuREuse resources to support professionals with a technical reuse specification library, embodied carbon calculators, and reclamation pathways, where people can really learn from possible scenarios. However, when consulting on reuse in live projects, the route to success is always a very clear vision and mobilising the network, which is the foundation of futuREuse and also why Salvo was established. Take, for example, a demolition alert posted on Salvo Web last week for truckloads of red granite from an office building in the city. Only made possible through open paths of communication between the demolition contractor and the reclamation business that is supporting the rescue and hopefully future use of the granite with Salvo. By providing free tools like demo alerts and wanted alerts, Salvo supports reclamation and reuse, and we would like to encourage the reuse of more large-scale modern demolition salvage.
Our next case study, Refashion Surplus with Purpose at Boutique by Shelter, also in the Coal Drop Yards development, where they broke the mould with a blend of established and emerging brands. Central to this fusion was a charity shop, linchpin to the high street no matter the decade, but particularly astute given the current boom of the second-hand fashion market. Unlike the rest of the high street, revenue in the charity retail sector has been increasing year on year, perhaps due to economic uncertainty, but there is also a sea change in attitude towards second-hand clothing. Customers are more clued into the true cost of fashion and the environmental benefits of reuse. The interiors were created by Hemingway Design with the surplus materials from the development, repurposing elements like paving slabs for shoe displays. The store design was long listed in the 2019 Design Awards, and sales have outperformed their expectations. But even more than this, it's created a halo effect that's rippling through the whole network. The shop is a real conversation starter where Shelter can connect with customers and really communicate their cause.
You might call Bella Freud's shop a home from home, as it borrows from residential motifs. Bella collaborated with architect Maria Speaker Vitruvius, who she previously worked with on her home. Vitruvius, the London-based architectural salvage and design practice, designs for the materials, creating space around them rather than seeking or adapting materials to suit. The right salvage naturally integrates into Bella's built environment and connects customers to eras that influence her.
From the reclaimed stone floors to the fluted terrazzo column drums rescued from a department store that closed down in Liverpool, Vitruvius is passionate about maintaining the reusability of materials. Keen to dispel the stigma that reuse is complicated, Maria says reuse should be simple and does not need to be disguised through complicated processes or acts of transformation. Vitruvius has built a reputation for the real deal, reclaiming brilliant examples of desired material, but also creating demand with their eye for quality salvage. The result is honest spaces like this one, which convey Bella's world. We've seen other examples of fashionable places blended, borrowed and reclaimed from one shop fit to supply another, from hat shops to hairdressers and hospitality. This is the age of sharing, and both fashion and construction sectors are seeking circular models, from fashion to rent to treating buildings as material banks. The truth is that whether loaned or owned, the shirt on our backs, the bricks in our buildings, and of course the planet are all borrowed.
As the different case studies have shown, reclamation in design is an ethos rather than an aesthetic. When reclamation becomes associated with a new fashionable aesthetic, it trickles down into the mass market, and when demand outstrips supply, it drives fake reclaimed materials. Some of the fashion retail sector, which from the late 70s had been reusers of salvage, started to get the look from fake reclaimed, which was a budget way to fabricate green-looking credentials, but with a high environmental cost, not simply of the new, but the additional cost of making the new look reclaimed. Beyond cheating customers with pretend eco-friendliness, without a strong and varied reuse market, there is a danger that high-value materials may follow lower-value routes or even be landfilled. Shockingly today, you can find brand new building material manufacturers that sell brand new bricks, as reclaimed. Reacting to popular demand for authentic reclaimed materials, they counter by saying, and I quote, "It is better to fake it with new." We are fighting back, and one of the major deliverables that Salvo is contributing to the futuREuse FCRBE project is a truly reclaimed label.
Our scheme will inform customers of the provenance and positive carbon consequences of reusing the reclaimed product. This will allow consumers to cut through the industry smokescreen and tell the difference between authentic material versus the imitation. The label will increase the visibility and representation of these products and promote ethical dimensions of the reclamation sector whilst exposing fraudulent behaviour.
But it is worth bearing in mind that the look is just one part of the sensory difference we get from reclaimed materials. Whether it's the fact that they are more likely to have been handmade or the hands that carefully clean and prepare reclaimed materials for reuse, the humanity of truly reclaimed materials sets them apart. Like us, they have a past and they're ready to bring experience to your project. One may be able to replicate the look, but truly reclaimed materials feel different.